Alright, Sprocket here again. Back on this th350. Well, I did a couple things off camera here. Put the, tail shaft housing seal in. It's basically what seals the drive shaft into there to keep it from leaking fluid out. I also put in, back here, the seal for the torque converter into the pump. So those two were in. I'm going to work on some of the external things here. For example, over here where the manual shaft goes through for your shift selector, I'm going to be putting that seal in. Probably going to be working on this here. I believe it's accumulator, which is this thing right here. I'm going to start working on the valve body. Now, this one here, I don't know if you can, how well you can see that. It has a composite one in it, and I really don't want to use that. I don't trust it. So, in the other one, yep, there it is. Has an aluminum one in it. So I'd rather use that one. So I'm not sure yet which one of these valve bodies I'm going to use. I believe that's the one that came out of the Nova. So it may have had some metal junk going through it, whereas this one here did not. So I'm probably going to use this one. But I'll make a determination once I get... I'm going to take this one apart first, just to be sure what's going on inside of it. Check the little galleries, everything like that. Make sure there's no binding or scoring or anything like that from metal going through. Whoa, okay. Finally focused. But I will bring you back once I get it apart and see what's going on. Alright, something I forgot to do earlier before I was going to move on here, and it's a good thing I actually saw it in the book. Right down in here, you see these here, your intermediate clutches. You need to do a clearance check on those. Well, when I tried to do that check, it's supposed to go right in between here, whoop, where the screwdriver is. Now, I don't know how well you can pick this up, but they are hard against. I have no clearance whatsoever, which means those things are going to drag. So now I got to pull the pump back out and figure out why. So when I find out, I'll let you know. Okay, well, I figured out what I did wrong with these intermediate clutches. I misunderstood and put too many of this piece right here you see moving. That's the steel for the friction there. Normally, to get a smoother 1 to 2 shift, you would put the wavy plate in here, but since I don't want that smoother shift, I'm putting one of the old steels in place right here to give me a firmer shift. What I didn't realize was that that wavy plate went right against the friction and then against the piston right there on the back of the pump. So that's where I screwed up. So make sure you don't put too many steel plates in here. It doesn't help. Okay, so pump's back installed and tightened down. Here's those clutches, the M play I wanted to check for clearance, sorry. So as you can see, now I have clearance, which is what I was looking for. So there you go. Always helps to put things together the way they're supposed to be. Alright, as you can see, I've got the valve body gutted. Each one of these little assemblies, or stack-ups, however you want to look at it, they all come out of here in the end of the valve body. Now, the only thing that holds these little pins in is spring tension, which you see here, these springs. Okay, right here, whoa, too close. These here pins, you have to flip this over, compress the end of it so that it takes the spring tension off the pin to allow that pin to come out of there. That's the only thing that holds them things in there, is that spring tension. And sometimes they're a little bit tricky, so you just gotta push in on the end, flip it over, and then tap on it with something plastic. You don't want to tap on it something metal. And then those pins come out, and then you can remove the assembly. Now, this is the one that came out of the Nova. This one over here is the one that I got from a friend of mine. Now, if you look, drive shaft's in the way. Right here, you see this rust down inside here? That was something that concerned me. So the, I guess it would be called like a piston or something, or valve that goes inside of here. I wanted to check that, which is this one right here. So I'm going to show you this. Whoop. Where is it? Is it this end? Oh, nope, it's this end. I don't know how well you can see that, but to see that pitting, this is now junk because that's not going to seal anymore, and it's going to cause roughness inside of there as this thing slides back and forth, and it's going to waller out the bore. Excuse me. So I can't use that, but I also figured out, I don't know if you can see, we'll take this one in particular. See, that's an orange spring, right? So you go over to here, this one, same stack up, and it's got a purple spring. Okay? Now, the separator plate that was in this one, that's from this one, the one that came out of the Nova, is worn. Tells me it's pretty much an original one. It's GM. It's not an aftermarket. However, the one that came out of the other transmission, which is the one I'm going to use, where is it? Aha! Whoops, upside down. Ah, stupid light. So I can get this thing to focus. There it is, Transco. So this is an aftermarket one, which means I think somebody had put a shift kit into that other transmission. So all of these springs are going to be slightly different. It may have some slightly different little boosters in here. So what I'm going to do is, with the exception of that one, which I figured out is the exact same one as this one, that piece is exactly the same. It's just the springs that are different. I'm going to use most of these guts in my old valve body, not the one that came into the in the other transmission. All of these springs and everything, so that way, hopefully, this one will now have a shift kit. Now, this is all guesswork, and like I said, it's just because of that separator plate that I know somebody was already into that other transmission and put some different parts into it. And I know Transco makes what they call a shift improver kit. So I'm hoping that these springs are part of that shift improver kit, because they're not the same as these. Because there's several different ones as far as color-wise. Pretty much, I think the only one that's the same as some of these little internal ones, like that one I think is the same. Yeah, those two are the same, but these other ones are different. So I'm hoping, like I said, to get some better shifting quality out of this once I put those springs into it. So I've already got this here. I believe that's an accumulator. I think that's what it was called. I don't know. I'm not up to all the technical jargon on what this stuff's called. So, but I got the rooster tail and the parking pawl. All this assembly is in here. I got the shift bracket on it. That's all mounted in. Of course, I already put the new seal in there. I showed you that earlier. So I'll bring it back when I get more done. All right. Well, I got it all together. If you're wondering what those two studs are, if it's for a mount bracket for the exhaust, everything is back together. Went together fairly well. Didn't give me a whole lot of grief. A couple pieces of advice. When building a transmission, you want to take your time. Never get into a hurry. If you get frustrated, things get broken or put together wrong. So just take your time. Torque converter. Two things. Always pre-fill. You want to make sure you get some transmission fluid into it, at the very least a quart. Sometimes you can get about 2 in there. And then tip it up into place, and it should clunk in there at least 3 times. That way you know you're all the way in. So another way to tell, you see how this mating surface is way behind here. Right here, I'll show you this way. Boop. See how far it is over on my finger? That's how far in it is. If you don't have it that far in, you don't have enough clearance for the flex plate and or flex plate, because it's an automatic. Once you get your detent cable in, test it. Make sure it's springy. Oops, that's really close. See if I can do this with one hand. Boing. See? So that way you know it's hooked up right. and it moves smoothly. It doesn't give you any grief. Another thing, always make sure you clean this vent out. That's all it is just an air vent, but you want to make sure that it's clean, because things getting too pressurized is never a good thing. If you have this clip, use it. It's just a safety precaution. This cover's pressed in more or less, so you have to tap it in around the outside edge. But if you have the clip, it's just nice to put it on there. And make sure on the Speedo driven gear here that you replace that inner seal and the outer seal. Most of your kits come with both. Make sure you do both, because a lot of times what will end up happening is you get your speedometer cable on here, and then this thing will be leaking around it, and you don't know why. That's why, because that inner seal is leaking. So another thing, always make sure these outer seals, like this one here at the tail shaft housing, the one up in the front for the torque converter, make sure you lubricate them before you go to put anything in there. It's easier to do it when it's apart, so you just put some, like in my case, petroleum jelly. Just put something on there so that way when you go to put it together, it slides, it doesn't tear it, it doesn't try and fold it over. So hopefully next video with this will be putting it into the car. So until then, have a good one.